Hey YouTube. So I want to do a video following up on a piece that I did a few weeks ago on the Reason Vegan, kind of explaining what my problem is with the discourse on YouTube. And I also mentioned in the piece that I wanted to get involved in the discussions on what's going on about veganism and related subjects, because I think that there's something missing in this discussion about all the positive elements of veganism. And I think, as I suggested in the post that I wrote, which I'll link to below, in that post I basically argued that veganism is an incredibly important topic, and the situation in which we need to be having this discussion about veganism is extremely dire. And because of that magnitude and importance, we need to be more serious and highlight the more positive aspects about veganism and try to have a serious discussion about what to do. And I didn't say this in the post, but I will say this here. Whether that means veganism or kind of like half veganism or whether it's 90% veganism, any progress is better than the status quo right now. Obviously, I believe personally, and I think that Mike and Evan, and as an organization, we can say at The Reasoned Vegan that veganism is the ideal. But obviously, the goal for everyone is to simply reduce the amount of meat and dairy that they consume. Right, but even that type of like nuance, that's kind of part of the discussion here, but it's just not even taking place. I think what we see on YouTube a lot is people calling out other YouTube channels, and it's really like polemical and like dramatic, and it doesn't seem like anyone's really interested in moving ideas forward and like demonstrating their rightness versus someone else's wrongness or whatnot. It just seems like they're trying to attract views and become popular, for a lack of a better way of putting it. And it's a frustrating thing. And I want to start getting involved in the discussion so I can bring, and it's not just me. I believe that we do this at The Reason Vegan, and I believe that there are other good, reputable YouTube channels out there too, who try to bring a sense of seriousness, reason, and a level of honesty also about the situation that we face. But I do want to bring that sense more strongly into the discourse, and kind of push out some of this other muck, push it down in terms of the volume that it has in this discussion overall. And so with all of that, I it's not just necessarily about those bad channels too. I think that one thing I didn't say in the piece was about some of the good channels, and I was thinking when I started doing this video, what's a good channel too? Obviously I think we can all have in our head an idea of a channel that does those bad things, kind of like being disingenuous or, inflating arguments and kind of poorly structured arguments and all these different types of things, more specific to which I allude to in the article, so I'll post to that. But there are good channels too, and one good channel in particular that I like to watch every now and again is Unnatural Vegan, and I was thinking of actually doing a video on an unnatural vegan. I think that in the scheme of things, to kind of put it in those terms, those macro terms, I think that she's a great voice for veganism. I think she's reasonable. I think she makes good arguments, and she's careful with her citations and her evidence. And I think that what I especially appreciate when she does make her arguments, I think that they're framed in such a way where she's not making any claims that kind of go beyond the evidence she has or what she might know. And I think that like even that delicacy. So when I say poorly structured arguments, she's showing what a well-structured argument is by kind of being careful. And I don't have a specific example, but of course, I'm certain because I've watched a lot of her videos, they're rife throughout her videos, where you can see well-structured arguments that the claims are within context of the information that's available. But I was thinking, okay, that would be a fun video to maybe do on her, kind of to bring up the energy a little bit, because I think that in the post, and even right now, maybe in the beginning of this video, I kind of was a downer about it. I mean, I think the situation is, for a lack of a better way of putting it, it's a shit show on YouTube. I truly believe that. And it doesn't help that we actually have people like the individual I'm going to talk about tonight. It's very fortuitous, because as I was thinking about this, doing this video about Unnatural Vegan, I saw her get called out on another channel that I follow. This channel, I kind of follow it because the guy is, humorous. He usually gives me a good chuckle. Picks me up after a long day. He's a funny guy. Generally, he makes ridiculous claims about veganism, and he has an interesting and unique approach to advocating against veganism, but he's still dumb. And I say that, let me be clear, I'm going to call him stupid because this is the same thing he says about vegans. And he says a lot of other more insensitive and offensive things about vegans. So I'm going to come directly and say he's not smart. He's a stupid individual. So I just want to be clear. That's not something that I would typically say. I try not to do that typically because I want to be respectful. But he's incredibly disrespectful to vegans. And I also think that, disrespect aside, he also, the information that he puts out, on a good day it's humorous, but on a bad day it's actually incredibly harmful. It just depends on what day you find me watching his videos. So he says things. Well, let me just say, I'm going to point out one video that he did, just to kind of like highlight him, because I think that he is a bizarre person, and he says two of the dumbest things. I want the camera to see two of the dumbest things that I think I've ever heard, ever. If not two of they're probably like in the top 5, honestly. So you'll get a kick out of it. So without further ado, I will tell you, the individual is a man who appears behind the channels Spherage and Goatis. And on these channels, they do a myriad of things. I'll show the public. I mean, I'm sure people may already know his videos, his channel. But what he does on these channels, I think it might be another individual who's associated with Goatis. I've only seen him on here recently, but even still, he does things like how we see here. He interviews people who were vegan but no longer are vegan. And he kind of interviews them about their story coming into and leaving the vegan life, the vegan diet primarily, honestly. I've watched a few of these videos, not all of them. And there is a theme consistent through each of the interviews about how those individuals became vegan because of the diet. Because they wanted to have a diet that maximized their well-being and energy and all those other things. And it didn't work out, and they started to feel poorly. And they couldn't, there were issues, I suppose, with them maintaining and sustaining a vegan diet, so they stopped. And on some of the videos, some of the interviews, they do put a negative connotation on veganism as being something that they kind of felt compelled that they had to try to at their own detriment. And I think that it's an interesting approach. I mean, I think that the interviews, obviously, I think individuals, viewers, are going to take them as they may. So coming with their dispositions, their opinions, their impressions and interpretations, all those different things. And they're going to have different takeaways. My takeaway, I'm biased, obviously. I'm vegan. I do believe, I don't doubt the sincerity of these individuals' stories. I think that these individuals probably did have a hard time adapting to the vegan diet. But I also believe more strongly that it's manageable to live a healthy, a nutritious, a beneficial, a positive, and an ethical vegan life. I do believe that. I think it's something that's attainable and not difficult either, honestly. But again, I mean, I don't doubt these individuals at their word. I believe that they were not feeling well with their diet. And I believe that they felt compelled over time to no longer be vegan. But I think what these interviews don't point out, and this is something that I allude to in that post actually, is how veganism, becoming a vegan for the diet and for the nutritional aspects, is kind of like the flimsiest reason to go vegan. It's the most common reason that people go vegan on one hand, but it's also the most common reason people stop being vegan. So it's a slippery slope. And I think that that fact about the veganism has to be kept in context, and it doesn't in these interviews, and he doesn't put that into context at all in his videos either, and his focus is about health and nutrition. He's got an interesting take on it, everyone. He believes that health and nutrition can be attained by eating raw meat, drinking raw blood, and drinking raw milk. So these are things that I literally have never heard a medical professional recommend. These are things that, without speaking to the truthfulness of those claims, because I'm not a medical doctor, and he is not, he is certainly not, he's an idiot. But not being a medical doctor and not speaking on the truthfulness of the matter, I can say with certainty that the consensus, the strong consensus, the near majority of medical professionals, I'm sure, would say that it is not healthy, and in fact it is risky and reckless to make a lifestyle choice out of eating raw meat, drinking raw milk, and drinking raw blood. It might work for this one individual. I think the thing that always gets ignored about these conversations about health and nutrition, this is one of the reasons I personally don't like to get involved in these discussions, is because they're so nuanced and technical and scientific, and it requires so much more rigor than most of the people who opine about health actually are willing to put in. It's incredibly difficult to make a strong argument, well, to make a credible argument about health and nutrition without having a strong background. You know, and it's not even just being a nutritional coach. I mean, there's just so much to it. And then there's an element of wisdom that you have to have. And this doesn't, again, this is not coming from a place of knowledge. This is coming from a place of just listening to other people talk and drawing my own interpretation. I mean, for someone who hasn't had any formal education in medical science, I've just listened to podcasts where medical doctors and nutritionists and, statisticians have had conversations about health and nutrition. I referenced some of them in the piece that I wrote. And what I hear from them and what I've heard throughout my life listening to medical doctors is that these things are not healthy, and that what it means to be healthy is such an individualized, more complicated and nuanced and challenging thing, even to describe, let alone attain. So much so that it doesn't seem to give justice to a conversation to not put that all into context, right? And that's my gripe with the health. And this guy goes way far afield. He doesn't even talk about what anyone talks about. I mean, I've heard people who have carnivore diets, who eat primarily or mostly meat, or entirely meat, I should say. But that meat is cooked. I've honestly never heard, except for this channel, Goatis, and another channel, Milk Jar. I've never heard of anyone advocate for consuming raw animal products. I mean, it just doesn't seem healthful. But nonetheless, this guy just says generally stupid, wrong, and offensive things about veganism. And it's all kind of packed into this video here, where he talks about unnatural vegan. And I'm going to show a little bit about the video, just because it's one thing for me to tell you the two dumbest things that I've heard, probably ever. But I think you need to hear it too, everyone, because it's incredibly ridiculous. So in this video, just within the first minute, so I promise you, you don't have to commit much longer if you don't want to. Just within the first minute of this video, he he says that unnatural vegan should not, when unnatural vegan gives her infant child her breast milk, her infant is consuming something and not being vegan. It basically, another way of putting it, giving your baby your breast milk is not vegan, because you're an animal and you're giving your baby an animal product to consume, and they consume it, therefore they consume an animal product, and that is not vegan by definition. So like, that's really dumb, right? Like, I mean, maybe this is the first time I've heard anything so ridiculous, but like, maybe if you've heard someone else say that before, comment below, because like, I've never heard this before. That's so stupid. Why would anyone think that? You know, that's just like obviously ridiculous. Like, it's not worth anyone's time to even pretend that it's legitimate. It's just dumb. I mean, like, that alone, we should say, like, oh, this guy is just not credible. Like, obviously he doesn't know what he's talking about. You know, I'll stick around for the laughs, but I'm not going to take anything serious away from this. He's just not smart, and he's incredibly arrogant. But it's not enough that he says something stupid. I want to point out, just for everyone, I'm going to highlight the title of the video here. So, Unnatural Vegan, the dumbest vegan YouTuber. It's very ironic that he should make this the title, being that he is probably one of the dumbest YouTubers. You know, he's just really, I think what he might be trying to say is just trying to model stupidity. So if you do have a question, maybe if she's the dumbest vegan YouTuber, I don't know, you've got a pretty dumb YouTuber right here in Spherage or Goatis or whatever his name is. So you've got a model, I suppose, right, to see what it really looks like. Because right after this, he says that if you're going to give your baby breast milk from your human breast milk, why wouldn't you give your baby goat's milk? Why wouldn't you give your baby cow's milk? And why wouldn't you even give your baby meat? Because these all have similar, comparatively similar levels of calcium. That's what he says. And again, what? This is just ridiculous. Nobody, just, I don't even believe that that's true. Because I don't believe that anything this guy says. But even if we were to stipulate that it was true, that they're comparatively similar in their level of calcium, there's so many other chemicals and compounds in the milk of each animal that, like, there's no way that you can really compare in any conclusive way to say that it's healthy or that it's at least not unhealthy. Because the consensus, again, is that these things are generally not healthy. And it's quite simple, really. It's one of those things, you know, when you go vegan, some things just kind of click. And it's almost like you didn't need to be reasoned to. It just kind of like made sense all of a sudden. And that's how it happened with me with regards to cows, because I finally realized cow's milk is for cow babies, and goat's milk is for goat babies, and human milk is for human babies. So each milk is for that species. So it kind of makes enough sense intuitively, without even having to guess that hard, that it wouldn't be so good to consume cow's milk, which is used to make a baby cow grow hundreds of pounds very quickly, versus a goat's milk, which also is used to make that goat grow into, you know, whatever an average, normal, healthy goat might look like or weigh. These things are going into a human body. All the hormones and the compounds and the chemicals, and sure, the calcium, right? But they're way different. Like, this is just craziness. Like, I've never heard him say anything like this before, and that's why I needed to do this video. I know it's late. I mean, I think it came out like over a week ago, but I'll tell you, everyone, I've been trying. I keep doing these videos. I'm not good at this stuff. I'm getting better as time comes along, but there's one thing here and there. Right now I'm doing this very late at night because it's the only time I seem to have uninterrupted where I know what the settings will be and I can control for all the technology. But I've been wanting to do this video for a while because I've never heard him say anything like this before. I mean, later on in the video, he also goes into how veganism is a mental illness and how it leads to malnourishment, and he calls her anemic. He calls veganism child abuse, which is someone who I don't even want to go too far down this road, but I'll just say briefly, as someone who studies the subject of child welfare, child abuse and neglect in the state of New Jersey as well as in the country, as to the extent that I can, and to see what abuse looks like, or to know what abuse looks like on a deeper level, it's almost an affront to characterize raising vegan children as child abuse. It's like flatly and plainly wrong. It's baseless. It's ridiculous. It's offensive, and it just flies in the face of what we know of as abuse. This is, you know, this is like just mudslinging at its worst, or, you know, just a deeply offensive thing. And again, that's why I'm coming at this guy so hard, because these are foolish things, and he wants to dish out some insults to vegans and say that, again, it's a mental illness. I mean, this is a field that I am acquainted with to some extent. To see these misrepresentations of what these words mean come out of his mouth with his arrogance, it's just ridiculous. I mean, and it does offend me, honestly. But it's also wrong, and it's also ridiculous, and it's also stupid. So, I mean, I want to get back to that point because, you know, you'll see, I'm going to play just some of the video. You know, and part of the reason too, just, and I'll get to it in just a second, I want to feed two birds with one scone, as PETA would say. Thank you, PETA. Because I'm going to play him watching her, and it's kind of like I'm able to basically highlight both of their channels at once. I mean, that's pretty cool. It's pretty meta. So I'm going to get into the video. And, you know, just pay attention to, just within the first minute. You know, he says those two... Tell me what you think. Are these the two dumbest things you've ever heard? That it's not vegan to feed your baby your own breast milk, your human breast milk, and that that consuming, like, if you're going to consume dairy, like human milk, you might as well consume cow milk and goat milk and meat. So these are the dumbest things, definitely in my top 5. Tell me what you think, world. So here he is, everyone. If you haven't already watched the video.
Hey. The definition of anemia made another video.
Oh, he just jumps right out and says it.
Here's the thing. It's breast milk, okay? Which is animal milk, right? Vegans may not understand this. It's animal excretion, just so you get it, okay?
Yeah.
It's full of cholesterol, saturated animal fat, exactly the things that you demonize. So I guess that after 2, 3, 4 years, it somehow becomes carcinogenic and causes heart disease, right?
Yes.
Even though all of our cells are made out of those nutrients. We already understand that they're completely mentally fucking retarded, but here's the thing. If she feeds the baby...
So, like, again, I mean, this is just slanderous. Like, he's... And I'm looking right at him this time. It's just slanderous, and it's wrong. I mean, honestly, it kind of does frustrate me because it's just... like almost like bullying, almost. And he's not even right enough to earn the ability, not to say that any of this is appropriate or justifiable, but like, at least with some background knowledge, expertise, whatever you want to call it, you can kind of bring forth a level of authority or certainty or assuredness. But he doesn't know anything. Yet he's incredibly assured. He's assured enough to say that veganism, I don't even like saying the word. He says that, you know, it's a mental, you know, handicap, or, you know, and again, this is just ridiculous. I just wanted to jump in there because, like, that stuff does, that kind of crosses a line. I mean, it's nothing. There's much more worse language on YouTube and content on YouTube. But I mean, for anyone who's trying to be serious, this is how you don't act.
Eat the breast milk, then what's your argument for not feeding it any other animal foods? Eggs, made out of the same as breast milk. Any other animal's milk, same thing.
No matter what bad mood I'm in, though.
Calcium, but goat's milk is pretty much the same.
These stupid comments always get me.
If a woman who's vegan can't breastfeed her child, then she could simply use goat's milk, right? But they wouldn't. Why? Why not feed her simply meat?
Look at this.
It's made out of the same as the breast milk. It's all the same nutrients and everything, the same compounds, because it's an animal food. So what's the argument? It's always fucking moral. And where do morals come from?
He got us.
From religions.
From religions.
So if she
I forgot about that.
Baby breast milk, she cannot say
veganism
that it's
is a religion.
Unhealthy. There's no way for a vegan to say, yeah, I feed it saturated fat and cholesterol, but I don't feed it animal foods. They cannot say it's unhealthy because they already feed the baby that stuff. So they can't say that it's unhealthy for humans. So this is such a hypocritical liar. Wow. I'm gonna...
Liar. She's a liar. He's spreading literal falsehoods, untruths, and she's a liar. Just take note, everyone.
I watched the new video that she made.
This is where it gets meta.
It's been a while since I've talked kind of in depth, I guess, about what my kid eats, my toddler, my 2-year-old.
We're having a three-way discussion right now.
Crazy. They are vegan. They're still
crazy that he's still alive, or she. We don't even know.
Conception? I don't know. I feel weird saying that, like I'm bragging. My kid's been vegan since conception. I don't know. It just feels like it's like people but people were asking me.
It's mostly getting its nutrients from animal food.
A lot of people have asked me,
but it's vegan.
Why I'm still vegan? So every single day when they wake up in the morning, if
I know I know I said I wouldn't want to go too far into that specific point of his, but I mean, I kind of feel like I have to just to say this. Veganism is, the strict definition of veganism is almost like it puts a limitation on the way we should think veganism. It's just not practical, and most vegans don't identify or align with the definition that veganism is strictly not consuming any animal products or byproducts always. You know, like there's the more technical definition, and like non-human animals is, for one thing, definitely part of that definition, right? Like, again, anyone who's serious, anyone who's reasonable, vegan or not vegan, can agree to that. Right, so I don't want to go far into that because it's just so, it almost just like gives it more weight than it's worth. But again, I mean, he insists on saying this multiple times throughout the video.
I don't remember. They will ask for their vitamins. They absolutely love these Veg Life Kid.
Absolute poison. There's no supplement out there that's ever been proven to work. Ever. There's never been a study, nothing.
Has to have spirulina. It's disgusting.
I don't even
That's
want to
ridiculous.
Look into
Like,
what stuff is made out of.
They also get
we don't have to know anything about medical science to know that
vitamin D. I think it's the Nordic Naturals.
Hold on, I'm sorry. This is the last time I'm going to interrupt. We don't have to know anything about medical science or be journalists or scholars or whatever to know that there are studies about supplements. In order to put out a supplement, you have to get, well, most of the time, the supplements have to get FDA approval. So, I mean, this is obviously untrue, and it's ridiculous. And the fact that he's making this declaration publicly is almost embarrassing for him.
Vegan.
Vitamin D is an animal hormone. How can you give it to them? It makes no sense.
Every other day as well. Again, it's just
it's obviously fake.
We did the Deva ones for a long time. Those are the ones that I take that are in the capsules, and we would just poke it with a toothpick and put it in their milk sometimes, which sounds really gross, but they actually liked it. But yeah, now we just use whatever
you feed it to them,
the sprite is, and we just use a little dropper and literally just.
I don't even want to. I mean, I want to wrap it up anyway because I'm about a half hour into this. It's always funny to leave things on a certain space and time in the video, the context of the video. I mean, that's a pretty funny face she's just like making throughout, like between her words. But I just want to kind of wrap up by saying that like this man is a fool, and he's arrogant, and he's wrong, and no one should take him seriously. But I mean, if you're looking for a good laugh, this video is going to be here to stay. So I mean, have fun with this. I mean, obviously, it's all ridiculous. It's all a lie. Maybe in another video, in another day, I will more directly go argue against what he's saying. But honestly, I mean, a lot of this stuff kind of goes without saying why he's wrong. You don't have to know anything. I don't know anything about health or nutrition. I don't pretend to, unlike him, unlike most people. However, I don't have to know anything in order to say that medical professionals, whether it be a doctor or someone even who works in a medical facility, don't say anything about eating raw meat and drinking raw blood and drinking raw milk. And at the end of the day, that's what this guy is arguing. So he's saying, hey guys, don't be vegan. Why don't you come over here and eat this raw cow brain? He ate raw cow brain Milk Jar, one of these other channels that does raw meat, ate a cow brain in front of a vegan protest. But I'm sure he's eaten cow brain before. I think he ate a live chicken. He ate a live chicken in front of a vegan protester. Or, well, maybe not a vegan protester. And let me say with the first example as well, with Milk Jar eating a cow brain, that was not a protest, just to be clear. Excuse me for saying it poorly. It was a demonstration. There was no protest. It was a demonstration when Milk Jar ate a cow brain, and it was a demonstration when he ate a raw chicken. But they both did it, and it's risky, if not unhealthy outright. More of these videos are going to be coming because there's a lot of other things to highlight in the discussion about veganism and just about the subject matter related to veganism. So this is included, and it's fair game because this has implications for how we talk about veganism, and I also go into that a little bit on the piece in The Reason Vegan. So with that, let me tell you, check out all the other pieces that we have on The Reason Vegan. I just did an article recently on the libertarian case for veganism. I had a lot of fun writing that piece because I enjoy putting a libertarian hat on every now and again. Evan just did a really good piece about just really bad excuses for why people are not vegan. Check it out. It's a pithy argument, but it's a powerful point. I'll put it that way. Because I think that we do tend to hear the excuse that he references on the article, and I'm not going to get into it because you guys got to check it out. Check out our website. Share what our content is if you like it. Tell others about it. Tell them to check out our website. Check out the YouTube channel here. Definitely like the video, subscribe, all that stuff. Check us out on Patreon. Patronize us on Patreon, I should say. We are trying to do things, and it's hard. I'd like to get a better webcam. I'm pretty sure I talk faster than this webcam records, so there may be periods where there's a delay. In any case, eventually, with more patrons, and it's not just for the money, but I'd like to buy a better webcam one day. Obviously, it's not just for the money. I mean, this subject is far more important than that. And we, just with the small team that we are, and with the virtually no budget we have, I think we've actually been able to accomplish a lot to promote a positive discussion for veganism. But I want to, again, like I said in the post, get myself more involved in that discussion. I think that there's a piece missing. More generally, I think that there's a piece missing of reasonability, and we bring that voice, myself, Evan, and Mike. Check us out on thereasonvegan.com, Patreon, like, share, subscribe, check us out on Facebook, all that good stuff. And definitely comment below. Let me know if I can give you guys some homework. Let me know if the two arguments he made in the beginning of the video are the two dumbest things that you've ever heard, or maybe on your top list. And also let me know if you've ever heard anyone say that giving a human baby human milk is not vegan, because I've never heard that, and it's just like, what's so jarring is that, like, you would never expect to hear anything like that. Like, you don't even really expect that those words can be strung together in that way, because it's so inconceivable and ridiculous and wrong and foolish and not worth anyone's time and meaningless. So, alas, it happened though. Maybe not for the first time. It was for me, but you tell me. And that's it. Have a good whatever time of the day it is where you are, or night, because it's night for me.